Well, this is Steve Ridgel coming to you again with some more suggestions about how to talk to people about Jesus. We've talked about how to pray for God to put people in your life who are seeking or who need Jesus. We've talked about how you pray for God to soften the heart of those you love. And we've talked about how you pray for God to give you opportunities and you to see those and have the courage. We've talked about how you want to talk about Jesus, that you want to sprinkle Jesus into your conversation, part because that's who we are and we ought to give him praise, but we want people that know us to be used to hearing us talk about Jesus. But the other thing you can do is there comes a time when you have to ask people if they want to have more conversation, or you invite people into more conversation. That time comes. It may be when you've said to somebody, well, I'm pretty excited because in a couple of weeks at church, we're having a marriage seminar, and they say, oh, wow. And you say, well, would you like to come? I'd like you to be our guest. And you pay for the registration fee. And if you can't afford it, you find somebody at church that can and invite them as your guest. Or a parenting conference, or some discussion about, maybe it's about aging parents, and you know people in your life who have aging parents, and so you invite them. And maybe it's one of those traditional, here's a good time to invite people to church, Christmas or Mother's Day or Easter or whatever. Or maybe just sometime when you're talking and they say, you're coming in from church, you see your neighbor or your friend or somebody you care about, and you said something about church, and they say, well, it sounds like you enjoy it. Well, you've got a couple options there. Either to say, yes, would you like to come sometime and see what we're about? Or you can say, yes, why don't you come over, let me buy you a cup of coffee, or come over tomorrow night for supper, or whatever the invite is, and say, and I'd like to tell you why I love church so much, why I love Jesus so much. When the person says, wow, you sure talk about Jesus a lot, and I know things aren't going real well, that's still an opportunity to say, yeah, I'd like to talk to you about why I still believe in Jesus, and I think Jesus will take care of me. There are so many ways and so many opportunities to at some point to make that ask, to say, can I tell you why? Can I tell you my story? Can I talk about? Would you like to go with me too? Or maybe if they say something like this, well, I admire your conviction about Jesus. I used to go to church when I was little, but it just didn't work, or I got hurt at church, or I didn't like church, or whatever. It's a chance for you to say, well, I'd like to hear more about your journey. How about you come over for supper and I'd like to hear your story, and I'd like to share my story. Learn to make the invite. Learn to ask people. You'll be amazed sometimes when they will say, well, I'd like that. Or if they say anything resembling, well, I don't know if I really want to, talk. It's okay sometimes to say, well, if you're curious about Jesus, you just want to tell Jesus stories. You want to come over and let's tell let's talk about a Jesus story, non-threatening, not inviting them into a Bible study, not inviting them to church, just, well, would you like to sit down and let me tell you a Jesus story? And that made it develop into several weeks of Jesus stories. So learn to ask people and invite people, and you may get a chance to tell your loved ones about Jesus.